In this lesson, we're going to talk about really cozying up and, cozying up just like family. It's a really important concept that can definitely help you with your client base, whether they be, suspect, prospect, lead, or a current customer. So if you've ever been to overseas or to a foreign land where you didn't know anyone there, didn't speak the language, and looked different to everyone on the street, you probably were quite relieved to see some business that you recognize, like McDonald's or something like that, on a street corner. We all love exotic things for a short period of time, but when we want to, come home, we want things that are familiar and comforting. This strategy is all about the longing for the familiar and learning how to cozy up to your sales prospect just like family. So, what's the strategy here? Here's where brand names and familiar advertising that rings a bell in your memory become powerful. A brand name uses this strategy because people come to feel connected and rely on brands they are familiar with and tend to avoid those they don't know or trust. So, in essence, the brand becomes a familiar element, almost like family. And this generates repeat sales and a customer loyal to the particular product. But how do people make a brand name that sticks in the mind of a sales prospect? Lots of money and advertising goes in developing brand names that are easy to remember and show up everywhere, and that will be recognized and associated with a particular product or company. The strategy, though, is simple. It's just really simple. Um, it's simply just to expose the public to this brand name over and over and associate it with a type of advertising that links certain qualities with that brand name. For instance, when you think of Maytag, you think of dependability in washers and dryers. That's because Magtag, really became such a household brand name, and the commercials were always about the poor Maytag repairman who had nothing to do because the appliances rarely broke down. They were humorous, and they also got across the fact that you can depend on a Maytag. Even though Maytag is just an arbitrary name, it became associated with a particular subset of qualities and a product to boot. So, the way to achieve some sort of familiarity to a brand name is to constantly present them in front of people until they start to associate them with the product or advertising. This really isn't as hard as it sounds. And on the internet, for example, it can be very easy to do. Unlike television and radio ads, which can quickly add up into a fortune. And you don't have to limit it to a brand name. You can also create eye-catching logos and display them everywhere you want to trigger an association with your website or your products. Once people start to associate a symbol with a set of qualities and or product, it can become a very powerful tool to create familiarity and interest no matter what the environment. That's because an image, unlike a word, bypasses the conscious mind and goes straight to the subconscious. People have images that they associate with certain qualities too, and you can mine those cultural biases to associate different qualities of familiarity to your products. For instance, say you're trying to sell flowers. If you just put up images of flowers or bouquets, you will be showing your product, but you won't be making your company or brand of flowers any more familiar, than your competitors. But if you started a marketing campaign and added a logo with symbols of romance like a heart or even a kiss, people start to feel your flowers are more familiar because everyone is impacted by these symbols subconsciously. Now, if you use that marketing campaign to tell people to send flowers to people they love and you make up special kissable bouquets, then the idea that you are sharing romance and warmth with people when you send a flower bouquet is even more familiar. It's not just flowers people are sending now, they are sending love. And what is a more traditional family value than love? So, what's the psychological trigger? In a culture that relies on family and social bonds to survive, there are certain common bonds that create predictable familiarity with different words or characteristics. As an example, If you were to ask people to choose a number between 1 and 10, the majority will pick 7. Why is that? There are some unconscious programming that favors 7 as a random number, and people find the most familiar number to pick. They aren't going to pick numbers they don't like, for the most part, and most people like and are comfortable with choosing the number 7 when asked to pick a random number. What that means for you as a marketer or even a business owner is that you should be aware of these unconscious biases and seek to always use what's going to be familiar and comfortable to the potential buyer. In this case, you would create ebooks with the top 7 tips to breakthrough profits or 7 secrets to light up your love life. Doesn't really matter that you can write about 8 or that there are hundreds of these tips and secrets out there. Not really. You're marketing to the subconscious mind that favors the number 7. You should be familiar with the most common choices that people make, whether it be the color that is preferred by most people or genders, and the top features that people want in specific products. That way, when you try to market a product, you can offer these choices to the customer, and they will feel as if you got right into their head and picked up what made them comfortable. It will seem like you were listening to them specifically when you just happen to know what most people find comforting. Also, repetition is important when using this strategy because the mind takes a certain amount of repetition for it to take some bit of information and store it in the long-term memory. Without this repetition, you may love the marketing campaign, the product, or the brand and really connect with it, but you will soon forget it too. As a business owner or marketer, you want to have a certain amount of repetition and exposure to be able to hook into the mind and send out the message that this is important information that needs to be stored in more long-term memory. While some people think that to repeat the same campaign year after year is a mistake, it all depends on how successful the campaign is. You shouldn't change an advertising campaign until the sales fall off. That's because even after the novelty of a campaign falls off, you then get into familiarity and comfort. When people are comfortable with a slogan, for instance, becomes part of the popular culture, like the slogan, "Got milk." The Dairy Association used it to popularize the familiarity of milk and how good it is for you. They even use celebrities with milk mustaches to give it the giggle factor that reminds us of our youth. That campaign is popular and increases the demand for milk. But it also sinks deep into, the popular mass consciousness. In the campaign that asks, "Where's the beef?" it was to sell hamburgers of a particular vendor. But the slogan became so popular and comfortable with the majority of people that it also spun off many other meanings and associations as other people capitalized on its simple yet effective message. Now, "Where's the beef?" means, "Where's the substance?" Or, "Why am I being cheated?" And people can ask the same question of other products, and it means something totally different. It becomes that familiar concept or slogan. Ultimately, that makes this slogan highly successful because people recognize it, know what it refers to, and how it can be applied elsewhere. It becomes a part of our modern day culture. So, how to implement this effectively? One of the first ways to implement this strategy is through mass exposure. You will have to choose something to advertise, but many people use their domain names to link to a mass exposure campaign. It can also be your personal name, a brand name, company name, uh, but a web URL is memorable and gives instant access to many of your sales offers. Picking a domain name is tricky these days because all the good ones are taken. To be a memorable domain name that rolls off the tongue should be one or two word phrase that only can be easily associated with what you are selling on your website. Unfortunately, those have all been gobbled up by domain name investors, so you are probably going to end up with at least 3 words in your domain name, unless you want to pay an investor for the rights to the domain they own. And that can be a possibility since a domain name is a valuable piece of your marketing strategy. You can check out domain names at places like GoDaddy or Namecheap and find out how to purchase them there. You'll want to buy them with several different extensions like .org, .net, .com, so on and so forth. This ensures that no one attempts to squat on your name for future purposes. Once you own a good domain name that is memorable and easily associated with your product or service, the rest is easy. You just advertise the domain name wherever you go online and offline. You can advertise it in your letterhead, your business cards, even on the side of your car if you are that adventurous. If you aren't necessarily targeting the domain name, you still want to include it in your advertising in conjunction with whatever brand name, logo, or slogan you're using with this strategy. Then you want to add it to your signature so that when you post online or send an email, people start to associate these images, words, or URL with your business. It's the small interactions that can have a large cumulative effect later down the line when they are trying to figure out who to contact for a particular solution. If your email is sitting in their inbox after having remained in contact with them over the course of some time, they will associate you with a familiar face and contact you. That's also the reason that you should use social network sites and be a member of multiple forums and groups. These types of interactions breed familiarity on a very intimate level over the internet, especially, and they have the potential to reach many more people than just two or three coming into a retail store. Once people begin to associate your name and face with certain qualities, particularly friendship and familiarity, they are more apt to buy something from you or contact you when they have a need. So let's talk about timing this strategy. As stated above, you should make an effort to, contact people on a regular basis so that your name, brand, logo, or products don't fall off their horizon. You may find that by contacting them over a period of time, they will come to know and trust you, even if you don't make a sale every single time. What you are doing is building the relationship so that they start to associate you like family and miss you when you are gone. This can take some time and patience on your part, but the rewards are that you will be turned to when a sales opportunity does come. Always have some idea of what elements on your site and sales offer can trigger this association of familiarity. It can be the words you use, the images you display, or even just your name. Once people get really familiar with who you are and what you do, they become more trusting and less resistant to being marketed to. So, although the strategy isn't going to reap an instant sale, it will play on the subconscious mind of your target so that it will reap new and repeated sales very effectively. So, there again, treat all of your interactions that you have daily, be them friends, actual family, leads, prospects, suspects. Always treat them like family, and at some point, they will cozy up to you just as you have cozied up to them. That's it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next video.